It was 7:42 on the morning of September 19th, 1944. Lieutenant Edwin Liper stood exposed in the open turret of his M-18 Hellcat on Hill 246 near Arracourt, France. He was staring into a white, blinding fog, a mist so thick he could see barely 30 feet in any direction, and from that mist, the muzzle of a German Panther tank gun was emerging. Liper was just 26 years old. He had 3 months commanding a tank destroyer platoon and 0 combat experience against the one tank that terrified the Allied armies. The German 11th-Third Panzer Brigade had unleashed 45 Panther tanks and 36 Panzer Mark IVs toward the American 4th Armored Division's command post that morning. Liper commanded 4 M-18 Hellcat tank destroyers, 4 machines that American tankers had openly dismissed as a tragic joke since their arrival in France 2 months earlier. The M-18 weighed 17 tons. The Panther approaching through that fog weighed 45 tons, nearly 3 times heavier. The M-18 carried 13 millimeters of frontal armor, barely enough to stop heavy rifle bullets. The Panther's frontal plate was 80 millimeters of hardened, sloped steel. The 4th Armored Division had already lost 14 Sherman medium tanks and 7 Stuart light tanks in the previous 3 days of fighting around Arracourt. 25 men killed, 88 wounded. Most died when German 75mm and 88mm guns punched through their frontal armor at ranges exceeding 1,000 yards. The M-18's main weapon, a 76mm gun, simply could not penetrate a Panther's frontal armor at any combat range, not at 1,000 yards, not at 500 yards. Not even at point-blank range. The Army's own tests proved it was useless head-on. Sherman crews called the M-18 a death trap. Tank destroyer crews from the older M10 battalions called it a suicide machine. But Liper was about to prove them all spectacularly wrong, revealing a shocking secret that few in the high command even knew existed. To understand the impossible position Liper was in, we have to look back at the doctrine that created the Hellcat. General Andrew Bruce designed the tank destroyer concept in 1941, before Pearl Harbor. Bruce predicted that future wars would feature massive, breakthrough tank attacks, blitzkrieg tactics. He believed the solution wasn't heavier armor, but speed. Bruce envisioned a vehicle that could reach 60 miles per hour, armed with a gun that could kill any tank at 1,000 yards. The doctrine was simple. Exploit gaps in enemy lines, maneuver to advantageous positions, deliver accurate fire, and immediately withdraw before the enemy could return fire. Hit and run, shoot and scoot. Buick delivered the M-18 Hellcat to meet this radical vision. It was the fastest-tracked armored vehicle in the entire war. The M-18 weighed only 17,700 pounds combat-loaded. Its engine produced 400 horsepower, giving it a power-to-weight ratio of 22 horsepower per ton, far surpassing the 13 horsepower per ton of the Sherman. But speed meant nothing if the gun was inadequate. The 76mm M1 gun was the same weapon mounted on later Sherman variants, firing the same ammunition. Against the mighty Panther's front plate, the gun was effectively useless. The Army did develop high-velocity, armor-piercing rounds, designated T4 HVAP, which used a tungsten carbide core. This round could theoretically penetrate the Panther's mantlet at 1,000 yards, but HVAP ammunition remained critically scarce throughout 1944. Production was severely limited. Most tank destroyer battalions received perhaps 2 HVAP rounds per vehicle per month. They saved them for desperate situations. The engagement on Hill 246 was fought entirely with standard M62 armor-piercing rounds. The tactical mandate was clear: do not engage Panthers from the front. Use speed, use terrain, and pray. In combat against German crews who had survived 2 years on the brutal Eastern Front, the theory looked like organized suicide. Hitler had personally ordered the German 5th Panzer Army's counteroffensive, stop Patton, recapture Nancy. The 11th-3rd and 111th Panzer Brigades were fully equipped. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either prove the doctrine was a masterful stroke of genius or a deadly, unforgivable mistake. This was the untold advantage, the design secret nobody focused on. The M18's electric turret traverse could complete a full 360-degree rotation in under 20 seconds. The Panther's turret was hand-cranked, taking nearly a full minute. That difference was the margin between life and death. The gunner acquired the target. Range, 75 yards. Stacy gave the order to fire at 7:46 and 15 seconds. The shell struck the Panther's right track assembly. The track shattered. The Panther stopped. Smoke poured from the damaged suspension. The German crew began evacuating immediately they knew they were exposed. Stacy's loader rammed another round into the breach. 7 seconds. The gunner fired again. This round penetrated the Panther's thinner side armor. The tank erupted in flames. A second Panther emerged from the fog 30 seconds later, range 80 yards. The German crew was scanning, but the low-profile Hellcat was invisible from below. Stacy's gunner fired without waiting for orders. The shell struck the second Panther's mantlet. The ricochet effect worked perfectly, sending the shell downward through the thin armor above the driver's compartment. The Panther stopped moving. No fire, no smoke, just a dead tank with a dead crew inside. Liper's other 3 M18s were spread 50 yards apart, standard doctrine, never bunch up. The German tanks kept appearing at the base of Hill 246 like ghosts in a line, advancing in a blind column formation. They were driving directly into the ambush. 3rd Panther, 747, Sergeant Henry Hartman, a veteran crewman since the battalion's activation in April 1941, engaged, 90 yards. Single shot through the side armor. The Panther burned. 4th Panther, 748. Liper's own M18 fired 2 shots. The second round penetrated the turret ring, jamming the Panther's turret. The crew evacuated. 5th Panther, 749. Stacy's second kill. This one saw the muzzle flash. The Panther's long gun began traversing toward Stacy's position. It was agonizingly slow. Stacy's gunner fired first. The shell struck the Panther's gun mantlet. Penetration. Total crew loss. 5 German Panthers destroyed in 4 minutes. The theory worked. The turret traversed speed, and the dense fog which eliminated the Panther's gun range advantage meant everything. But even a perfect ambush cannot last forever. Then the 6th Panther appeared at 750. This crew was experienced. The German tank commander positioned his Panther hull down. He had a clear shot at Stacy's M18. The Panther fired first. The 75mm shell struck Stacy's M18 on the right side of the turret. The explosion instantly killed the loader. Shrapnel wounded the gunner and commander. The driver and assistant driver were uninjured, but the M18's right track was damaged. The vehicle could barely move. Stacy ordered his crew to withdraw immediately. They coaxed the damaged Hellcat down the reverse slope, smoke trailing behind them. They would make it back, but Liper's platoon now had only 3 M18s against 76 remaining German tanks. The price of the ambush was rising fast. Liper was outnumbered 25-1, but the German column kept making a fatal mistake, advancing blindly. The fog had them operating exactly against their own doctrine. The 7th Panther, 752. Hartman's crew engaged from the left flank, penetrating the thinner rear armor. Flames climbed 30 feet into the morning air. The 9th Panther, 756. Hartman's third kill. The German tank tried to flank left. The maneuver exposed its side armor. Hartman's gunner fired 1 round. Penetration. The shell found the ammunition storage. The Panther exploded. The turret lifted 3 feet off the hull. No survivors. The 10th Panther, 758. Sergeant Miller's crew on the right flank engaged. The Panther was reversing, deciding retreat was better than death. Miller's gunner fired again. The shell struck the Panther's mantlet. Deflection shot. The round ricocheted down through the glacis plate. The Panther stopped. At 8:02, the German 11th-Third Panzer Brigade attempted a coordinated assault. 6 Panthers advanced simultaneously. Liper's 3 remaining M18s opened fire. 3 shots, 3 hits. 3 Panthers stopped in less than 10 seconds. The remaining 3 retreated into the fog. 13th Panther destroyed, all within 60 seconds. The engagement was becoming a slaughter. But at 8:07, a Panther found Miller's position from an unexpected angle. It had somehow climbed an impossible ridgeline. The Panther fired first, range 40 yards. The shell struck Miller's M18 directly on the thin frontal armor. 13 millimeters of steel offered no protection. The shell penetrated the crew compartment. Miller died instantly. His gunner died instantly. 2 M18s remaining. 13 German Panthers destroyed, but the cost was rising. Miller was 31 years old, married, 2 children in Pennsylvania, who would receive a devastating telegram in 3 weeks. The fog began lifting at 8:15. Visibility increased from 30 feet to 100 feet, then 200 feet. The advantage was shifting. Panthers could now engage at ranges where their superior armor and gunpowder mattered. At 8:23, a Panther engaged Liper's M18 from 300 yards. The German shell missed by 10 feet, but the message was clear. Stay here and you will die. Liper ordered his driver to reposition. The M18 backed down the reverse slope, moved 50 yards left, and returned to the crest. The entire movement took 40 seconds. That mobility, shoot and scoot, was why the M18 existed. The 15th Panther appeared at 8:28. Hartmann's crew spotted it, range 200 yards. The fog was nearly gone. The German tank was cautiously hull down. Hartmann's first shot struck a stone wall. The German commander now knew his exact position. The Panther's gun began traversing slowly. Hartmann's gunner fired again. The shell struck the Panther's mantlet. Perfect deflection shot. The round ricocheted downward through the thin upper glacis plate. The Panther stopped moving. 15 German Panthers destroyed in 46 minutes. The engagement was over. The fog lifted completely by 900 hours. The battlefield revealed 15 destroyed Panthers, scattered across the approaches to Hill 246. Captain Thomas Evans arrived at Liper's position at 9:15. He counted them twice. 15 confirmed kills against 4 M18s. The kill ratio was better than anyone at Fort Hood had ever predicted. Hartmann reported 6 confirmed kills. His gunner would receive a Bronze Star for his textbook gunnery. Liper accepted 2 confirmed kills for his crew. The German 11th-Third Panzer Brigade, which started the morning with 81 operational tanks, now had 66. 15 Panthers were destroyed in less than an hour. The German brigade commander reported to 5th Panzer Army headquarters that American tank destroyers were more effective than intelligence assessments had indicated. His recommendation was stark: avoid engagement with M18 units unless German forces held significant numerical superiority and good visibility. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had proven something profound. The M18 Hellcat was not a suicide machine. It was not a death trap. It was a fast, lethal platform that could exploit enemy vulnerabilities and withdraw before the enemy could respond effectively. But September 19th was only the beginning. The Battle of Arracourt would continue for 10 more days. The German 5th Panzer Army would commit the 111th Panzer Brigade. More Panthers, more attacks, the 704th would face them all. Between September 19th and September 29th, Company C of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion would engage German armor in 17 separate actions. They would destroy 39 Panthers and Panzer Mark IVs. They would lose 4 M18s destroyed and 3 damaged. The kill-to-loss ratio remained extraordinary throughout the entire battle. American tankers stopped calling the M18 pathetic. Word spread through Patton's Third Army. The Hellcat worked. The German commanders learned quickly. They used infantry screens. They maintained better spacing between tanks. They avoided predictable approach routes. The 704th had to adapt. M18 crews began using buildings as cover. They would position behind stone farmhouses, fire one shot, reverse out, and reposition to a completely different location before German return fire arrived. The tactic worked because the M-18 could accelerate faster than any German tank could traverse its turret. On September 22nd, elements of the German 11th Panzer Division attacked toward Juvillies. Heavy fog again, visibility reduced to 100 feet. Hellcats engaged from concealed positions. 3 Panthers destroyed before the German column withdrew. No American losses. But on September 23rd, the weather cleared completely. Visibility extended to over 2,000 yards. Panthers now held the advantage. Several M-18s were destroyed that day. Captain Evans lost his second M-18 on September 24th. German artillery fire landing directly in the open turret. 3 crewmen killed instantly. The loader survived but lost both legs. The lesson was brutal. Never expose yourself in open terrain. Never engage at long range. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed its 25th Panther on September 25th, the 30th on September 27th, and the 39th and final Panther on September 29th. By the end of the battle, Company C alone had claimed 22 confirmed kills. The German 5th Panzer Army withdrew on September 30th. Liper returned to Company C's command post that afternoon. He wrote his after-action report by hand, 23 pages, every engagement timed, every shot documented. The report reached 3rd Army headquarters within 48 hours. Staff officers studied it carefully. The conclusion was undeniable. The tactical solution was simple. Do not engage Panthers from the front. Do not engage at long range. Use speed to achieve a firing position on the enemy's flank or rear. But more importantly, Liper's report confirmed the viability of the mantlet deflection shot. Hartmann had scored 3 deflection kills on September 19th. His gunner understood the geometry. Aim for the mantlet. Let physics do the work. The shell ricochets downward through the thin upper glacis. The ricochet penetrates into the crew compartment. The Panther dies. This technique became standard doctrine for M-18 crews throughout the European theater. They were trained to trust the shocking physics of the shot. Do not waste rounds on the thick glacis plate. Aim for weak points. Exploit geometry. Liper would not remain a lieutenant much longer. By March 1945, he would be promoted to first lieutenant. He would cross the Rhine River on March 24th. He would fight through the Harz Mountains in April. He would survive the entire war and return home to a country that had no idea what he had accomplished on a foggy French hillside in September 1944. The M-18 Hellcat, the suicide machine, had entered combat service just 3 months before the engagement on Hill 246. It proved that the American belief in mobility and firepower, coupled with a shocking, unconventional tactical approach, could defeat the most feared armor of the war. The real question is, how many more desperate, brilliant, and untold acts of courage were committed during the war, whose heroes never wrote a 23-page report?